From a bird-watching nurse to a line-dancing firefighter, nobody's just one thing. That's why Polar Pop and Froster aren't either. Choose from all kinds of flavors and make your mix. Polar Pop and Froster, just 79 cents each at Circle K. Limited time only at participating locations.
Football represents something we are.
Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff.
I'm going to do what's best for the team.
Where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts.
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hauff.
And welcome back to the FF Faceoff, where fantasy meets reality. It is always great to have you with us for an absolutely locked and loaded fantasy football quarterback ADP price check edition of the most electrifying fantasy football podcast on the planet. And as always, we have a lot to talk about right now. Coming to you live from the FF Faceoff studio at the beautiful Jersey Shore, I am your host, Anthony Cervino. Be sure to follow me at the Real NFL Guru on Twitter. And while you're at it, be sure to follow the show at the FF Faceoff as well. You can find us on all of the top social media platforms. If you're coming to us right now on YouTube, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, or Twitch, welcome to the big show. And if you are joining us right now in podcast format on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Amazon Alexa, TuneIn, or Apple Podcast, thanks for stopping by. But before we get into the action, here is a little public service announcement from His Lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, if you like today's episode and subscribe to our channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed, and once you are done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. Like I always like to remind you, we are a cost-free production here at the FF Faceoff, but just because we are a cost-free production, it doesn't mean a lot of time doesn't go into our efforts, speaking in terms of preparation and pre-production and post-production and research. And because we do bring you a cost-free program, all we ask for in return is for some cost-free engagements to help us grow our fan base and our community. Every time somebody likes, subscribes, and hits the alert icon so you can be notified anytime that we are live or when we upload. Every time that somebody shares our content or leaves us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, it not only helps us reach more of you, but all of your engagements and interactions, they never ever go unnoticed. You know, these are things that you can do right now as you are listening or as you are watching this show. We see and we appreciate each and every one of your interactions, engagements. So tell your family, tell your friends, and tell every single person you know about the FF Faceoff, because this is as much of your show as it is ours, and we mean that wholeheartedly. If you ask a question live or leave us a comment with the question at any one of the platforms that we are featured on, we usually bring them up on the show, especially in season. And that essentially makes you, the viewer, part of the show and part of the team here at the FF Faceoff. So in advance, we thank you. And before I forget, if you ever want to skip the PSA or skip the news or skip the trending topic if there is one, and all you want to do is jump right into the action and the proverbial meat and potatoes portion of the show, be sure to check out the description for some timestamps, which I usually install within an hour after publishing. Now today, before we get into the program, I do want to plug a sponsor And the sponsor also happens to be my new employer in the industry, and that is fantasyfootballking.com. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, you can see the graphic. And what Fantasy Football King is, we're essentially consultants. We are fantasy football consultants. Personalized expert fantasy football advice. We care about your fantasy team. You know, we are a competitive group of consultants here at Fantasy Football King, and we are dedicated to helping you win and dominate your fantasy football competitors. I work here, like I said, we are aligned on strategy and player evaluation. So how do you know that we're any good? Well, number one, you tuned into this show, so you know I'm damn good. But the rest of the guys, they're pretty good too. I know them personally. And not only that, we guarantee what we do. If you hire any one of us at Fantasy Football King, if you hire us for a full season and you don't make the playoffs, you get your money back. If you don't win, we don't make money. The incentives are aligned for nothing but success for all parties involved. Let me repeat that. We provide a money-back guarantee. If you hire us for a full season and you don't make the playoffs, you get your money back. You know, it is a risk-free opportunity for you to help you win and dominate your leagues. And we are 100% backed by discretion. If you don't want anybody to know that you are bringing in a ringer, we don't tell anybody. We're discreet. You get personal access to some of the best in the business, and nobody has to know. It's like if you ever watched The Simpsons, right? And you remember one of the older seasons when Mr. Burns makes a bet with that other plant boss? And then all of a sudden, Mr. Burns in the softball league, he brings in Darryl Strawberry and Mike Scioscia and Steve Sachs or Mike Sachs, whatever the hell his name is. I don't know baseball. Ken Griffey Jr. He brings in ringers to help him win and dominate. Well, you can do that too. Go to fantasyfootballkings.com. Make sure you fill out the contact form, and one of us will get back to you as soon as possible. Now, without further ado, let's get into the action. And today we will talk about...
Let's get ready to rumble!
We will talk about, before I got interrupted by Michael Buffer, we will talk about fantasy football quarterback ADP. Who do I feel is overvalued? Who do I feel is undervalued? And this is a big show. This is a great show because I feel like, we already did our fantasy football early top 12 rankings at each position. We already did our deep dynasty sleepers and our deep sleepers and our sleepers in general. And a lot of that's off-season content right around the draft. We are, the 21st of May in the year 2019. It's Tuesday. Teams opened up OTAs yesterday. It is football season. It is here. It is fantasy draft season. So now we are going to be nailing down our rankings and nailing down the ADP because it's for real now. So let's get right into it. And the first guy I want to talk about is Pat Mahomes. And obviously Pat Mahomes because he has a 7th pick in the 3rd round ADP at Fantasy Football Calculator. And the big question is his ADP too high? Now, he's coming off of a magnificent 50 touchdowns passing season. He added another 2 on the ground, only 12 picks, threw for almost 5,100 yards. in his first year as a starter, 417 fantasy points, almost 50, 60 points more than Matt Ryan, who finished as a QB2. So why is he overvalued? Well, number one, quarterbacks are just ridiculously deep. You can literally wait until round 11 or 12 in your fantasy draft and still end up with a Phil Rivers, who is a fringe QB1 every time he takes the field. He is also one of the most consistent quarterbacks. So why the hell would you take Pat Mahomes that early unless you can be guaranteed that type of production again? Now, not only is a regression almost, it's almost that's guaranteed a regression. Why? Well, who has ever thrown for back-to-back 5,100-yard and 50 touchdown seasons, right? It's never been done before. And that's when we thought he would have Tyreek Hill. Take Tyreek Hill out of the equation. We don't know what his outcome is, whether it's going to be 6 games, 10 games, a full season, whether the Chiefs decide to cut him or not, like they did with Kareem Hunt last year. But we do know Tyreek Hill is going to be out of the mix for a while. You still have Travis Kelce. You have Damian Williams for the full year. Now, Damian Williams is a player I really like. He showed out after the release of Kareem Hunt. But we don't really know if Damian Williams is going to be that guy for the duration of a full 16-game slate. Now, I'm buying into Damian Williams, so I really hope and I really do believe he could be that type of back, but it's not a guarantee. So, a question mark in Damian Williams. Big question mark in Tyreek Hill. You have Kelce. Sammy Watkins? What are you going to get out of Sammy Watkins? How much time is he going to miss, if any? If you believe in history repeats itself, and it has with Sammy Watkins, it's almost a foregone conclusion he will miss time. What have the Chiefs done to kind of counteract the Tyreek Hill mess? They brought in my guy, Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman is almost like a poor man's Tyreek Hill with rich man Tyreek Hill upside. Mecole Hardman's raw, only played 2 years of wide receiver in his life. Year 3 will be his rookie year in the NFL. Magnificent in the open field, one of the fastest blazing guys at the combine. I like Mecole Hardman because of the opportunity he will likely have. But again, there's no guarantee that Mecole Hardman is going to develop into an NFL wideout. Again, he's a player I'm buying into. Because of these question marks, however, I can buy into these guys all I want. Am I going to buy into Pat Mahomes at the 7th pick in the 3rd round? I don't know. I think that ADP is too rich for my blood because of the impending regression. Like I said, I believed he would regress a little bit if he would have had Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill. You take away those guys and you factor in, Damian Williams and Mecole Hardman. I'm not really confident in taking Mahomes that high, especially at a quarterback position that is this deep. So, yeah, I'm going to, and I'm not telling you not to buy into Pat Mahomes. That would be foolish. But should you be cautious? Absolutely. Would I recommend taking a quarterback a little bit later? Absolutely. Because the quarterback position in general is a little bit overvalued at times. Why do I say wait on Pat Mahomes? Well, Aaron Rodgers. Everybody remember Aaron Rodgers? Do you remember Aaron Rodgers? A couple of years ago, Aaron Rodgers was Pat Mahomes. Now, he wasn't throwing 50 scores, but he was coming damn close, and he was doing it on a consistent year-to-year basis. all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers can now be had at the 5th pick in the 5th round. Aaron Rodgers is a player that I believe is a little undervalued. But while I believe he's undervalued, the ADP price point is absolutely right where I want to take a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Because, listen, we know what Aaron Rodgers can do when he's playing like Aaron Rodgers. You know, he can put up that Pat Mahomes type of season. Maybe not 5,100 yards and 50 scores. That doesn't happen every year. But, 38 touchdowns, 4,800 yards. That's what Aaron Rodgers can do in his sleep. Aaron Rodgers was the perennial QB1 for a while, and now you can get him at the 5th pick in the 5th round. He's going to have Devontae Adams back. He is going to be in his 2nd season with Jimmy Graham and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Equanimeous St. Brown. Aaron Rodgers is poised for a bounce-back year. Aaron Rodgers no longer has Mike McCarthy draped over his back. They're no longer going to be butting heads. It is difficult not to buy into Aaron Rodgers. And let's get things straight here for a second. Aaron Rodgers had a bad year for Aaron Rodgers' standards, right? Still finished as the QB6. Still threw for nearly 4,500 yards. And where he was off was the touchdown 25. That is low for Aaron Rodgers. 25 scores. You can almost bank that if Aaron Rodgers is healthy for 16 games again this year, 30, 35 is where I'd probably put his floor. New system, new offensive coordinator, Aaron Rodgers, who I believe is one of the best to ever play the position, one of the best, if not the best I've ever seen play live, has a chip on his shoulder. He has a chip on his shoulder because there's no more Mike McCarthy. So not only does Aaron Rodgers, he wants to shove it up McCarthy's ass, but he wants to show everybody like, hey, it is all me. It wasn't his system. I'm the superstar here, and I'm going to ball out just to stick it up his ass a little bit. Because I'm Aaron Rodgers, and that's what I do. So I'm absolutely buying into Aaron Rodgers. He is probably the first quarterback I am going to consider, especially if he's there in round 5. Next guy I want to talk about is Baker Mayfield. 10th pick in the 5th round. Baker Mayfield last season as a rookie finished as the QB16, albeit he only played in 14 games. He threw for 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 picks. Baker Mayfield entering year 2 will be getting Odell Beckham Jr. He is going to get Kareem Hunt in the middle of the season. He already has Nick Chubb, David Njoku, who hasn't really developed yet into the player that people think he can be. Jarvis Landry, you have to expect, is going to have a nice year because Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be pulling that top cover corner away from Jarvis. And then Antonio Callaway, who these coaches seem to love in Cleveland. Listen, I believe in Baker Mayfield. But if I'm sitting at the 10th pick in the 5th round, and let's say Aaron Rodgers is there and Baker Mayfield is there, and it's almost absurd that I even have to say this, but people are taking Baker over Aaron Rodgers. Like, no. How can you take Baker over guys like Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers? It's crazy to me because Baker's entering year 2, and these guys, when healthy, they consistently put up top 5 fantasy quarterback numbers. So yeah, Baker to me is a little bit too high because I need to see him do it again. I want to see consistency. I want to see how Baker plays with OBJ. We haven't seen these guys on a field together, and all of a sudden, people think Baker's going to have a Pat Mahomes type season. You would have to think that he's going to have a huge year. If you're drafting him that early in a flooded, unbelievably deep, quarterback position, right? Baker is a little bit too overvalued for my blood when I know I can get players around him like Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, who are a little bit before. Behind him, Deshaun Watson. I mean, I don't know. Who would you rather have, Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson? If you're watching on YouTube or, comment. Who would you rather have, Baker or Watson? Baker's 10th pick in the 5th round, Deshaun Watson's 11th pick in the 5th round. Back to back, you're sitting there. Who you taking? You want to throw Aaron Rodgers in the mix too, since they're all going in the 5th? Rodgers, Mayfield, or Watson. Comment and tell me who would you rather have if you're listening in podcast format. Comment on Twitter. Tweet me on Twitter. Message me or, comment on the post on Facebook. Let me know what you think and who you like. Let's debate it. Next player I do want to talk about right now. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is sitting with, and I seem to make a little bit mistake. I put the decimal point in my show notes wrong, so I'm looking at the ADP sheet. He is sitting with the 6th pick in the 8th round. Folks, I cannot say it enough. I don't trust Carson Wentz. And I told everybody last year, don't trust Carson Wentz, and a lot of people didn't listen. And whenever I talk about Carson Wentz, I get a lot of dislikes. I'm sorry, I'm telling the truth. Carson Wentz is injured every year. And I know the most recent news is suggesting that he is not going to be limited in camp or OTAs with his back. But when it matters, in season, it seems like he is an injury away. He is one hit away from another back injury or a ribs injury or a knee injury. Carson Wentz has pretty much been injured every year, including his rookie year, where he dealt with the ribs injury in the preseason. 6th pick in the 8th round for a player that has yet to give you a full season. Tremendously deep, and I'm going to keep hammering this home. The quarterback position is tremendously deep to where don't take that risk. What if Drew Brees, who was the 3rd pick in the 7th round, what if Drew Brees falls and you have your choice between Wentz and Brees? Drew Brees does not miss time. He doesn't miss a snap unless they take him out for a gadget play with Taysom Hill. You absolutely take the proven commodity. At least for me, that's what I do. Consistency wins 9 times out of 10. Carson Wentz, I like him a little bit more in best ball because you draft a couple of quarterbacks and they put the optimal lineup in. If you're banking on Carson Wentz to give you a full 16 games, and you're taking him at this spot, then you absolutely positively must roster a QB2, and I wouldn't wait until, I wouldn't get Nick Foles in round 14 to protect myself. You need to invest in a quality QB2 sooner rather than later. Carson Wentz is almost as fragile as Marcus Mariota. Now, the upside, let's talk about the upside because I just don't want to bury the guy. The Eagles added Deshaun Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, and they have Goddard coming back in year 2, and Zach Ertz, who is one of my favorite tight ends. They drafted Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard. They revamped their O-line a little bit. So the pieces and the supporting cast around Wentz, if Wentz can give you that full 16-game slate, it is hard to imagine that he's not going to be a top 5 or even a top 3 quarterback. He just has it in terms of on-field production when healthy. Do I personally trust it? No, I would probably go somewhere else. I would wait. I would take another player in that round and go grab a Cam Newton in round 9. Go grab Rivers going at round 10. Wait. You won't get that Carson Wentz upside, but you will at least get consistency from a lot of these guys, especially Rivers. And Newton, he's coming off the injury, but he hasn't really missed a ton of time of late, with the exception of last year. And Cam Newton, he has some new weapons. He has, Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, who I love. They brought in Chris Hogan. So they have some pop on that team. And Cam is still Cam. I know he's getting up there, but he still runs a ton. And he is still a beast to tackle. And he's still going to give you that rushing floor. So I feel a little bit safer drafting another position, drafting your flex where you could draft Wentz and then take Cam a round or 2 later. So Wentz a little bit too rich for my blood because of his injury history. Wow, here's another player that is terribly too high, and I don't get it because this kid has never played a down in the NFL, and that's Kyler. That is Kyler Murray.
He's gotta puke! He's gotta puke! He's gotta puke!
Guys, I don't make these ADPs up, but Murray right now, 5th pick, 9th round, fantasy football calculator. Why? Can somebody tell me why? Not only has Kyler Murray never played an NFL down, but he's going to be playing in a Arizona team that has a lot of question marks. Okay, so you have David Johnson. That's great. You have Larry Fitzgerald, who knows what you're going to get. Fitzgerald up to last year was still one of the best receivers in the league, but that was with Carson Palmer. Christian Kirk, he is reportedly healthy. And I love Christian Kirk. I have him everywhere. So you have an aging Fitzgerald, David Johnson, a running back who can catch, Christian Kirk. Kirk is probably going to be your most productive pass catcher. Behind him, Hakeem Butler, Andy Isabella, Chad Williams. There is a lot of question marks in Arizona. Too many to be taking Kyler Murray with the 5th pick in the 9th round. I understand it's Cliff Kingsbury and the air raid offense. If it hits, listen, if everything hits in Arizona, is Kyler Murray going to be a top 10 quarterback? I don't know if I can buy that. I need to see it first. Kyler Murray also had one of the best offensive lines in the nation in college. The Cardinals were one of the worst. I don't know. Maybe I am being a Debbie Downer. Maybe I am just not sold on Kyler Murray and the rookie that is Kyler Murray going in the 9th round. And I'm not. He's not Baker. Maybe he will be one day, but right now he's not. And I know that, Baker had that big year last year. So does that mean Kyler Murray's going to have it too? If you do think he is, I don't know if I'm taking him with the 5th pick in the 9th round. That's QB 12 in their ADP rankings. You're telling me you're going to take Kyler Murray over Jameis Winston? Jameis Winston, who, despite his ball security and decision-making deficiencies, he's a big arm, big number quarterback, and now you're going to put Bruce Arians with him? You're going to take Kyler Murray over him? You're going to take Kyler Murray over Phil Rivers? You're going to take Kyler Murray over, and let's just segue into Dak Prescott. You're going to take Kyler Murray over Dak? Dak is a QB1, or at least, what was it, 2017, he finished as a QB13. And the other 2 years, he finished as a QB1. You know what you're getting out of Dak. You know that Dak has rushed for at least 6 touchdowns in each of his first 3 years in the NFL. You know Dak and his rushing ability raises his floor. If you think that about Lamar Jackson, you have to believe that about Dak. He is a monster in the red zone. He is a big-bodied quarterback who can get that ball into the end zone from short yardage. He even takes a little bit away from Ezekiel Elliott's touchdown production. Dak Prescott was a different quarterback after the acquisition of Amari Cooper last year. Not only that, but you can make the case that before Amari Cooper, has Dak ever really had a receiver that fits his playing style? I mean, okay, Dez, but Dez and Dak didn't fit. Dez and Romo fit. Dez and Aaron Rodgers would fit. I don't know if Dez and Dak was that right marriage. Dak and Amari Cooper can do something that Dez didn't do that well. Dez was a big-bodied, can go up and make that contested catch type of receiver. Amari Cooper creates separation. And Dak Prescott can launch that ball. And even though Dak is a little bit off in his accuracy, Amari Cooper has that speed to go and get it. That's why we saw so many of those pop, explosive plays out of Dallas last year. And now you have Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to be pounding the ball. A defense has to pick their poison. If they try to stop Zeke, there's a good chance we are going to see Amari Cooper singled up, or Michael Gallup, who started to flash a little bit at times, singled up, or how about Randall Cobb in the slot? I know Randall Cobb hasn't been the healthiest, but he is still a pretty good player when he's healthy. This Cowboys passing attack is very, very underrated, and you want to make yourself sick, because it makes me sick that Dak Prescott's average draft position at Fantasy Football Calculator, 12th pick in the 12th round, he is the 20th quarterback taken off the board. This is a player, like I said, he finishes as a QB1 2 out of his first 3 years in the league, and the 1 year he didn't, he finished as a QB13. He finished as the QB13 in 2017. That was the year Zeke missed 6 games. If Zeke played those 6 games, better believe Dak Prescott would have finished as a QB1 in each of his first 3 years in the NFL. And the fact that he perennially goes undervalued, it's just absurd to me. It absolutely is. And let's clear this up. And I made the mistake here. I'm sorry. Let me retract. In 2017, Dak Prescott finished as a QB11. So in his first 3 years in the NFL, Dak Prescott has finished as a QB1. So I'm sorry I made a mistake, but the mistake proves my point. There is no reason why he should be going as the 20th quarterback off the board. It is absolutely positively absurd. So much so, did you hear that? That was my kid crying in the background. He thinks it's even crazy for Dak to go that late. Next player I want to talk about, another one going way too low. And it's another one of my guys, and that's Kirk Cousins, 4th pick in the 12th round, going a little bit before Dak. Cousins had an off year from Kirk Cousins' standard. He finished as a QB13. He is usually a QB1. But for whatever reason, last year in Minnesota, he was very erratic. If you remember earlier in the year, he had a couple of huge monster games. But then it started to taper off as the season went on, and his production got really bad at times. I mean, you would almost think, is this even the same Kirk Cousins? Why did the Vikings pay him all that money? I think Kirk Cousins bounces back in his year 2 in Minnesota. I think this proves Kirk Cousins against Seattle, 208 yards, one touchdown. We saw that a lot, those low yardage and one touchdown games. It seemed like the Minnesota offense couldn't get out of its way. How do they change? Well, they fired their offensive coordinator, who I believe is now, in Jacksonville? DeFilippo. They brought in Gary Kubiak from the Broncos. And I'm a big Gary Kubiak fan. I like the way he works his offense, and he is not going to be their OC, but he is going to be a consultant. And I believe he is going to help get this Minnesota Vikings passing attack and offense on track. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are 2 of the most productive fantasy wide receivers and NFL wide receivers. In my opinion, I like Diggs a little bit more than I like Thielen. I think Diggs has the higher ceiling if he could ever play a full 16 games. And Adam Thielen is more of that possession receiver. And he gets a few more targets. I think this year changes. Now, Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen, they had that little rift. They were butting heads a little bit at the end of the season last year. And if you really watched the film, and if you really watched who was Kirk Cousins' go-to guy when things got tough, that was Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, like Dez, is a monster with the contested catch. He is also an explosive playmaker. If the Vikings can somehow find a wide receiver 3, and it's Treadwell going into his final year, they didn't pick up his option. They shouldn't. I'm not a Treadwell guy. I think his days are numbered. If they can somehow find a wide receiver 3 on this roster, I think the offense will flow a little bit better. But they did draft Irv Smith Jr. They still have Kyle Rudolph, so maybe we see a few more twin tight end sets if they don't move on from Rudolph, which they could. Maybe they run a few more twin tight end sets like we see out of Philadelphia with Goddard and Ertz. That is a way to combat the fact that they don't really have a dependable wide receiver 3. They even lost Aldrick Robinson, who I believe landed with the Carolina Panthers. But even without the clear-cut wide receiver 3 and the wide receiver depth, Thielen and Diggs are top 15 or better receivers. Kirk Cousins, we've seen him put up a top 6 fantasy production at quarterback in one of his seasons in Washington. He is a stats guy more than he is a wins guy. And that's just, prove me wrong, Kirk. Prove me wrong. But we do know that when Kirk Cousins is in a groove and is putting up big-time numbers, he has a top 5 ceiling. So the fact that Kirk Cousins is going as the 19th quarterback off the board is mind-blowing when Josh Allen is going in front of him and Tom Brady, who seems to be passing a little bit less, and they want to be more of an athletic run-dominant team, and they showed that by drafting Damian Harris and Sony Michel in back-to-back years. I would draft Cousins over Brady right now. Why not? There's no more Gronk. I know they signed Julian Edelman today, but there is, they brought in N'Keal Harry, but year 1 receivers that could take time to develop. I'm a little bit more cautious with Brady, who is going with the 9th pick in the 10th round and a 15th quarterback off the board. I'm a little bit more cautious with Tom Brady than I am about Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. As we wind down the show, I want to talk about one more player who does not have an average draft position on a fantasy football calculator. And I've talked about him on the show all offseason. He is one of my guys. He is going as the 27th or 28th quarterback off the board. And that is Andy freaking Dalton. Okay? I love Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is a pretty productive fantasy quarterback when everything is going right. We saw that last year in the first couple of games. Not only was the Bengals actually winning a few games, but Andy Dalton was one of the more productive quarterbacks in the league. And that was a time with A.J. Green. And when, Joe Mixon was healthy. Andy Dalton is going to be a new player in 2019. No more Marvin Lewis. And I've said this before, I've made this analogy before, when, things are stale, and things were stale for a while with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, look at how stale things were with Jeff Fisher and the Rams. And I'm not saying Zach Taylor is going to turn around this franchise like McVay turned around the Rams. But what Zach Taylor's going to do is at least give the players hope that they maybe lost under Marvin Lewis, because you knew, hey, Marvin Lewis will put a competitive team on the field, but at best, we're one and done in the playoffs. What Zach Taylor does is give the team hope. It gives the players hope. It gives the other coaches who remain hope. It gives the whole building. Zach Taylor is going to give the fan base, he's going to give the popcorn vendor hope because it's new and it's fresh. And this team is going to be playing with a little bit more giddy up in the preseason and in camp. I think Andy Dalton is going to benefit from fresh and new, more so than anything else. Andy Dalton's also going to be benefiting if A.J. Green can stay on the field, something that he hasn't been able to do in a while. He's going to be benefiting from Tyler Boyd. Because if Tyler Boyd is a wide receiver 2, that means A.J. Green's a wide receiver 1 and he's healthy. And if A.J. Green is commanding the top coverage, that means Tyler Boyd is going to be running wild. And we saw Tyler Boyd run wild for a little bit last year. At the tight end position, if Tyler Eifert can stay healthy, and I don't believe he will, but if he can, that gives Andy Dalton yet another weapon. But let's say Tyler Eifert gets hurt. I don't trust C.J. Uzomah, but they drafted Drew Sample. Now, Sample is a predominantly blocking tight end, but they seem to like him. They seem to think he has some untapped upside as a receiver. Sample is one of those players I'm taking in rookie drafts really late because it seems like people forget about him. And I forget the stat, but I believe he had 0 drops of like 23 or 25 catchable passes. So there is something there and something to be said about Drew Sample as a receiver. I just don't think we know that yet. So the Cincinnati Bengals are protected with something better than C.J. Uzomah if Tyler Eifert should go down again. At wide receiver 3, they have John Ross, and Ross is already missing a little bit of time due to some muscle tightness. So there's a question mark, like with the Minnesota Vikings, in terms of who's going to be the next guy up at the wide receiver 3 spot. But the same thing, like I said about the Vikings, I think Boyd and A.J. Green are pretty damn good, and pretty damn good enough to make Andy Dalton a productive fantasy quarterback, at least productive enough to be a bye-week replacement or an injury replacement if the original guy you drafted went down. In 2 quarterback leagues, superflex leagues, absolutely crushing with Andy Dalton right now in the late rounds because people think people think he's like a kryptonite, and he's not. They're running away like he's kryptonite. Andy Dalton's a very productive quarterback if everybody stays healthy. Hell, the Cincinnati Bengals even drafted an offensive lineman with their first round pick. Not to mention Joe Mixon could potentially be used in a similar capacity as a David Johnson or as a Todd Gurley. You know, Mixon was even banged up for a couple of games last year. If he stays healthy, I mean, he's a pretty good receiving back. He's also a pretty productive running back. In 14 games, he led the AFC in rushing. Just like in Dallas or in any of these other teams, that when you have a productive running back and an explosive running back, the opposing defense absolutely must honor the run, and that's going to open things up for Andy Dalton. So the fact that he's going without an ADP right now, it's disrespectful. Remember what I said earlier in the show about Carson Wentz? That if you draft Carson Wentz with the, with the sixth pick in the 8th round, and then you have to go get a quarterback sooner rather than later. Well, if you're one of those people that say, you know, Anthony, I don't care what you say. I'm not drafting another quarterback, especially not sooner, like you think I should. Then go get Andy Dalton later. You will thank me when Carson Wentz goes down again. That'll do it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. Couple of programming notes. A lot of you guys on YouTube, I see it in the comments. We have some dialogue in the comments. I know YouTube especially, you like the shorter programming. So you're always not going to get the news in the show for the sake of trying to give you a little bit more of a condensed show. Instead, I am going to be doing, especially now that it's really busy, I mean, the news slate today can take up a full hour show. I am going to be coming to you live on Spreaker, on the Spreaker app and the Spreaker website, coming to you live on certain days. And, you know, once I get into the groove, I'll have a set schedule, but coming to you live in audio-only format. And it's going to be a different show. It's going to be named Talking Football with the Real NFL Guru. I know you like it. I do. It's going to be covering news, notes, rumors, nuggets from OTAs and camp and everything else moving forward. I was going to do it sooner, but there wasn't a lot. There was a lot of dead points. But now we are going to be so busy that, you know, I'm going to be doing full shows, full of non-fantasy related. You know, it'll be a little bit more storyline driven. I hope to bring in a phone line there, and I hope to bring in a phone line here on this show as well. You are going to be seeing a lot of, different things go on here. I don't want myself or anybody else here at the FF Faceoff, I don't want you to get sick of us. I don't want to be stale. I always want to be bringing you something different. So some short shows, some longer shows, the news and audio format, some quick hitters here. In the near future, I am going to begin fantasy football NFL team previews, which, 10, 20-minute shows. I'm going to go through each and every team separately, of course, and go over their depth chart and tell you who you should be targeting, who you should be avoiding, who's a sleeper, who's that fifth wide receiver from the Arizona Cardinals that you might want to take if you're in a really deep league. Things like that. Maybe I'll tell you if I think the team's going to do well or not. Get into some projections. We're going to have fun this year on the FF Faceoff. I absolutely love doing this, and I hope you absolutely love tuning in, because it is really, aside from spending time with my family, it's probably my favorite time of the day of when I can bring you a show. Until next time, my name is Anthony Cervino. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Be sure to follow the show at the FF Faceoff. We'll be coming back to you at least definitely Thursday, but maybe tomorrow with a news-only show. Be sure to check us out The next show, we will probably be looking at overvalued and undervalued running back price checks at the running back position, obviously. Until then, I'm Anthony Cervino, and I'm out.
Progressive's number 1, number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
At Domino's, you can carry out large 3-topping pizzas for $7.99 each. And with carry-out insurance, we'll remake your pizza for free if anything happens to it after you leave the store. Even if it's not your fault. Like if it's a flash hailstorm's fault.
Oh, no.
Or if it's a bee in your car's fault.
Go, get out of here.
Or even if it is your fault for taking song lyrics entirely too literally.
And drop it down to the floor.
Aww. You must ask for this limited time carry-out offer. Prices and participation may vary. Insurance coverage for this promotion applies exclusively to Domino's Pizza LLC, its affiliates, and franchisees. Restrictions apply. See Domino's.com.